Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Bible study. Today is the second part of our study on the 10 plagues in the book of Exodus. And we have 4 additional plagues to do today, but we're going to begin with opening prayer with T.
Good morning. Thank you, Father, for this auspicious day of 8/24/24. We know, Abba Father, that you have plans for all of us today and that you go before us. So we invite you into our hearts. We ask you to help us follow you in every way this day. We receive your and welcome your grace in Yeshua's name. And the Bible study mission statement is that we are a Bible study whereby each participant researches from biblical sources and shares their research with each other, so that we seek to correct and teach the Word of God. We are a group of believers in Jesus Christ from all walks of life and backgrounds, coming together to dig deeper into God's Word, to know and to share His truth.
Okay, and now Donnie's going to start with the first plague.
So I thought we'd go back to Exodus for the plagues, the blood plagues. 7:17. I just want to read it so we can be reminded of what it actually says and help me. So in 7:17 it says, "This is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I am the Lord. With the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will be changed into blood. The fish of the Nile will die, and the river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water." The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams and canals, over the ponds and all the reservoirs. They will turn to blood. Blood will be everywhere in Egypt, even in vessels of wood and stone." Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He raised his staff in the presence of Pharaoh, and his officials had struck the water of the Nile, and all the waters were changed into blood. The fish of the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad that the Egyptians could not drink its water. Blood was everywhere in Egypt. And I just wanted to finish before we go to 8. It says, "But the Egyptian magicians did the same things by their secret arts. Pharaoh's heart became hard. He would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said." I'm wondering if they're trying to tell us they can't.
Do you guys hear us?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making
We were
sure.
just wondering, this is the third
Somebody's
time
trying to
somebody
call.
called.
Yeah.
We're just wondering.
Somebody's trying to get to us, but
Yeah,
be
I can hear a phone ringing.
yes. Okay, sorry guys. I'll go back to 22. But
Okay.
the magicians did the same things by their secret arts, and Pharaoh's heart became hard. He would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Instead, he turned and went into his place and did not take even this to heart. And all the Egyptians dug along the Nile to get drinking water, because they could not drink the water of the river. And just as all of you, when I started looking up the gods, I have the 3 gods that are up there. I was overwhelmed with so much information, as
Yeah.
you all were. My sister and I talked about it a lot, and I hadn't even read it. And she was like, "I couldn't even believe there's just so much to this." But the Kanum, the KH, the first one, I call it Kanum. I don't know if it's saying it the right way, but ancient Egyptian god of fertility, associated with water and with procreation. So a lot of fertility. Kanum was worshipped from the first dynasty into the early centuries. Dynasty, you had said, is a generational bloodline. So the first dynasty. Kanum is sometimes referred to as father of fathers, and Neith as mother of mothers. They later became parents of Ra, which someone else has Ra.
It's the sun god.
You do?
I think
Or
April does too.
Who is referred to as Kanum.
Oh, interesting. Didn't know that.
Okay, that's what they're all like
Keep repeating.
incestuous.
Yeah.
Huh.
The completion of hieroglyphics embellishments in Egyptian temples culminate with the temple of Esna. Another word. Canaan was originally a water god who was thought to rule over all water, including the rivers and lakes, and we're going to hear this word several times, the underworld. Okay, so now that was Canaan, and there's a ton written on Canaan. Then we have Happy, Hapi, a personification of the annual inundation, which is the flood. Terry has to help me with the words most of the time. Sorry about that, girls. Just a little side fun note. The inundation with the flood of the Nile River. Happy was the most important among numerous personifications of aspects of natural fertility, and his dominance increased during the Egyptian history. So this is Happy. This is just one of their gods. I never heard of him, but all of a sudden,
Me neither.
now I'm seeing, wait till you hear the rest of this. This is wild because of what's happening today.
Huh.
So, god of fertility and all the Nile. Happy is a great god, great, supposedly, providing the nutrients for the crops from the Nile. Silt,
I was about to say, we were talking about that because you were practicing silt.
right, silt. So silt, which is a word Terry knew, I didn't, I had to look it up. Fine sand clay carried by running water. So do you want to speak to that, Terry? Because you understood that best, because it made the soil perfect for crops because that's what happened.
Nutrients in it, I guess.
Yes, it
Yeah.
carries the minerals and the nutrients. So if you think of like a mountain and the river is running in a certain direction, when it rains or whatever, now you have the water running down the mountain, picking up the dirt, the minerals and all, and then coming into the river, and the river taking it downstream, and it's now sort of like the river is fertilizing the land where the basin is, and that's how the Nile actually runs. It's always funny to me because I look at a map and you think that it runs from the Mediterranean into the land, and it's not. It runs from the land north into the Mediterranean, and
Really?
the fertile
I
area,
didn't know that.
yeah, and the fertile area where Goshen is, we talk about Goshen, that fertile area is to the north, where the water is it's like a floodplain, and that's where the water is. It's like a floodplain.
Okay.
That receives all the nutrients that come down from the river.
So, and the more I'm learning and the more I'm seeing is that because they must have seen this going on, good morning, because they must have seen that going on, they actually would pray. They thought that was like what you had said last
That's
week,
really
which I found interesting. They saw the co-file and they prayed to it. They see this happening and they call it a god.
And what came to my mind when you were talking about that is I used to live on a canal, and our sprinklers were from the canal. And so they probably watered their lands from the Nile River, which then fertilized the land.
It
And
makes
so
sense,
now they can't fertilize their land
Right.
because it's ruined.
because it's
full
got the
of
blood. So then,
in the first place.
so Hapi being a water goddess, ready, is gender neutral. Gender neutral. I'll say it again. Gender neutral. What is going on in the world today?
Oh,
It's hydrogenous, which means both. The Nile would overflow annually. The silt, which is the fine sand and clay, would wash up on the shores that the silt from the earth that farmers would plant in. So that's how they got their wonderful harvest. There were priests assigned to Hapi. Their
yeah,
job was
bigotries, yep.
right. Their job was to monitor the Nile and predict the flooding.
Huh.
3 seasons, and they were predicting. Okay, so then it brings us to Osiris and Seth, or
Those are up
Set.
there
Is
on
it
the-
Seth or Seth?
So it both, because I have Seth also on mine, it's SET or SETH.
Okay,
And it's not the Seth of Adam and Eve Seth, it's like a counterfeit.
okay, everything's a counterfeit with the
Yeah.
enemy. So Osiris, and I had heard of Osiris. I don't know where I did, but I've heard of it. I don't know if it's through movies or
that thing under the ground.
the CERN.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's connected
that's
to the
right.
CERN.
There's this hydrogen
The Golan
Collider.
collider
Have you
in
heard about CERN?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're trying to, it's in Switzerland and it touches into, it's a 27 round ring that goes
The
through,
Ring of Fire?
that they're trying to create the black
No.
hole. They're trying to
You
recreate.
mentioned that yesterday. I'm like, oh, is that it?
It's happening today. All this is happening today.
Yeah.
And no one realizes it, but for some reason, I really believe God pointed us today for this because of what's happening in the world.
And the book of Genesis is a shadow of what's gonna happen in the book of Revelation, which is in the end times.
Right, right.
So he's like, pay attention, because you gotta know what's coming.
So grab Revelation, so at the end we'll read Revelation 16:1 for me.
Okay.
Okay, so now Osiris, order, okay, so it's a duality, balancing, opposing forces. And the Egyptians believed that it was a duality is what they
Mhm.
called it. Lord of the afterlife. Here we go, afterlife, underground, underworld.
This is just reminding me of the tectonic
Tectonic
plague.
What's
Okay, I
that?
haven't- I'll have to tell you later.
Okay, sidebar. Osiris, perpetuation, harmony, stability. They believed he was stability because he was, like I see the scales. now,
Yeah, balance.
Right. Ruled Egyptian before coming, and God to the underworld. He was the God to the underworld. They called him righteous, oh gosh, and wise king. Okay?
Wasn't.
Osiris and Isis were siblings and married, symbol of loyalty. So this is all mythological,
Mythological, so it's not real, it's all demonic.
Right, but this
But
is,
they don't know that.
right, and this is what they believed and taught. So Osiris in the Bible, it says it has two key figures in the origin of Christmas and Nimrod, a great grandson of Noah and his mother, also known as Ishtar and Isis. So they bring all
And
these
Ishtar
things-
is connected to Easter.
Easter, yes.
So there you go, the Christmas and the Easter pagan holidays.
So Nimrod, known in Egypt as Osiris, which is crazy, was founder of the first world emperor at Babel, later known as a Babylonian. I'm sorry, I said it again. I always do that.
Okay.
Thank you. First world empire at Babel, later known as Babylonian. So he was the judge of the dead, the afterlife, in the afterlife. Osiris was a god of the Egyptian mythological pantheon and the god of the afterlife.
And Pantheon is a what was it?
Many gods.
Many gods together, banding together, which makes me think of when you do the deliverance ministry, there are related demonic spirits, same kind of thing.
And I always think of the Parthenon
Mhm.
when I see pantheon.
Is that in, that's in Greece?
Eugenia would know.
And do you guys know anything about the Parthenon?
Yeah, is it,
Like
is
what
it
what
Egyptian?
exactly is it? Uh-oh. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah,
Yeah, are
Yeah.
you talking about the Pantheon?
Yeah, do you know anything about it there in Greece?
Well, Pantheon is the Parthenon, the Acropolis, near the Acropolis.
Yeah.
But what does that
It's-
mean?
It's that temple, it's that big temple.
Okay, it's a
That they did sacrifices to the gods.
pagan temple?
Yes.
Yeah, they did sacrifices to the gods, Zeus and
Wow. And oh my gosh, so that's what
That's-
came to my mind was that the way they built it, like in Egypt, they built those.
And it's still there.
It's crazy when you see it because they did that then. How did they do that?
Wow.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so Osiris was the Egyptian mythological pantheon and god of the afterlife, judge of the dead. Osiris was very wise and a powerful king, lower king, was loved and respected by the Egyptian people. Also, all myths. Brother Seth was jealous of him, so he killed him and cut his body into pieces. Seth became king of Egypt with his sister Nephthys as his wife. It's just bizarre. to me.
So
The whole thing
that
bizarre.
is incest.
Yes,
I mean,
And
even
it
though
was-
this is mythological, they're still promoting incest.
yes. So then it takes us to Revelation 16:1.
Just one or
That's
one?
all, that's, just go ahead and read it.
Okay, so let's see. Then I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the seven angels, go pour out the seven bowls of God's wrath on the earth. the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the land, and ugly festering sores broke out on the people who had the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and it turned into blood like that of a dead person, and every living thing in the sea died. Oh, there's more. I see blood again. The third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers and springs of water, and they became blood. Then I heard the angel in charge of the water say, "You are just in these judgments, O Holy One, you who are and who were, for they have shed the blood of your holy people and your prophets, and you have given them blood to drink as they deserve." And I heard the altar respond, "Yes, Lord God Almighty, true and just are your judgments."
So when he says you got what they deserved, because
Oh,
Pharaoh was so hardened with his
yeah,
heart.
because God keeps giving them
He
warnings
keeps-
and they don't
And
listen.
they're not, but he gave them so many chances.
I know.
And that's to me bizarre that he would
But,
even go that
and what's
far.
gone in my mind is 3 strikes, you're out. Then we had 3 phone rings. It rang
Yeah, that
3
was
times.
very strange.
3
That, the
times.
phone really very rarely rings.
And- Oh,
Oh, you were calling us? Well, there were
She
3 of
was
them.
calling.
3 times.
It was her, okay.
So you did it because you
She
wanted
was
to
outside,
let
wanted to come in.
You take and I didn't know if I could disturb you after
You
you
could disturb us.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
So.
Now we know, we're like 3 times.
Well, now
We're
we
like,
don't worry about it, exactly. And I don't worry too.
I wasn't counting, so that means something because, like I was worried, I called you too and I texted.
Oh, yeah, my phone is down here. I don't,
Yeah,
when I'm in this.
so it's bizarre because I thought I only did 2 times. Did I really?
You did do 3 times. And just for everybody to know, this is Gina Harecki. She's joins us every once in a while, and she's here today. Okay, sorry, Dawn, go ahead.
That's okay. No, that's it. It's, I think it's enough. I could have gone on and on like all of you could. But it was just enough. Like there's so much to the fact that they chopped up his body and they made a special coffin for him and nonsense, just utter nonsense. But it's the way the gods work and they feel like that they have more history behind them that they can, I want to say prove that it was true. If they come up with more nonsense, I don't know. Or did this all happen? Who knows? Mythological.
Okay, I'm gonna sit on the side because I have several slides for mine, so I have to be able to move it forward. So my plague is the 7th plague of hail and fire. And the Egyptian gods that I have is Nut, Seth, Shu, and Geb. So my Bible passage is Exodus 9:23 and 24, where it says, "And Moses stretched out his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and fire fell to the earth. And the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. There was hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, so very heavy that there was none like it in all the lands of Egypt since it became a nation." So the definition of hail is a form of precipitation consisting of solid ice that forms inside a thunderstorm draft. So when there are strong rising currents of air within a storm, these updrafts carry water droplets to a height where they freeze. So they go up really, really high. So it can range from a small pea-sized projectile to humongous hailstones as large as grapefruits. And when you consider hail falling from 30,000 feet at about 120 miles an hour, something like that was going to hurt really bad, do a lot of damage. So it's easy to see how devastating these hailstorms can actually be. But the hail in the 7th plague was not an ordinary type of hail. This was hail of unspeakable size, so it's bigger than grapefruits, and also of unspeakable structure, that it had the ability to destroy everything it came in contact with, including the people, the animal, the livestock, and the crops. So Moses had warned them to go inside, because if you go inside, you'll be saved. But if you don't, like he even said, bring in your animals. And when they didn't bring in their animals, so they were taken out too. And the hail in the 7th plague was hail mingled with fire, which according to biblical scholars was a miracle within a miracle. Because if you think about it, the hail did not quench the fire, and the fire did not melt the hail. So that alone in itself, fire and ice do not, they counteract each other. The Hebrew root word used here for fire is esh, which speaks about fire and ice coexisting together. This miracle within a miracle appears to look opposite of what you would expect from nature. Some scientists say that there is a scientific explanation behind this phenomenon. It's called accretionary lapilli. And that is a volcanic hail that's produced from an underwater earthquake that induces a volcano. And these form beneath the ocean and are some of the most powerful volcanoes on the earth. They form hot molten rock or magma that rises up in the atmosphere, and then it causes the presence of the water to alter the characteristics of the magma, which then cools and solidifies. So upon contact with water, the solid crust forms around the lava, causing it to be fire within water. And so this is actually a natural thing that can take place. It's called accretionary lapilli. So we will now look at the Egyptian gods and goddesses that this plague exposed as powerless and worthless. Since this plague originated with the sky, the most prominent deity discredited by this plague was Nut. And the first slide here is Nut, and I saw it in that book that you gave us. So she was the sky goddess, often depicted as in Egyptian art as a nude woman. So she's nude, arching over the earth. Her body is painted with stars. She was the Egyptian goddess of the sky, the stars, the cosmos, astronomy, and the universe. She is the mother of Osiris. Is that who you had? So she's his mother, according to Egyptian mythology. And so she's the mother of Osiris, Isis, which is what you said. They were brother and sisters. Set, or Seth, and Nephthys. Did you say Nephthys also?
No, but I saw that name come up
Yeah.
several times. I just didn't add, it was too
And
much.
what's coming to my mind is 4 children, the 4. They know the 4, the 4 corners of the earth,
Yes.
4 seasons.
Yes.
So she is considered one of the oldest deities among the Egyptian pantheon. Again, pantheon is a lot of gods together. Some scholars believe the Egyptians may have seen the Milky Way as a celestial depiction of her. The Milky Way is, T, can you describe how the Milky Way looks?
I actually haven't seen it, but it's in, it's fine how it looks.
Is it like that? Is it like the way they're depicting it?
I think it's in an arch,
like-
right?
If we look up to the sky, what we see, and we have a lot of pollution, honestly.
Yeah.
So if you were in a mountainous area or in the desert, you would see many more stars in the sky. But when we see stars, we see like a star here, a star there, a star, individual stars.
Yes,
And the Milky Way is like a rash of stars.
joined together,
Oh.
right?
Well, they
Connected like
look
that.
like they're grouped together going in a direction, so it would be like a flow, a Milky Way flow of stars together, so that you see it as a grouping rather than individuals. And
Yeah.
It's like a grouping, and the Milky Way always reminds me of like nourishment from a woman's breast.
Yeah,
It's like
milk,
just
and it's the
flowing.
way. Interesting. And she's got stars. So they probably painted her this way to copy that instead of,
Mhm.
and then they gave her credit and saying, oh no, that's really her. It's just crazy. Okay. So a sacred symbol of Nut was the ladder used by Osiris to enter the heavenly skies. That's right here. So this is this is the ladder that's associated with Nut. This ladder was called Maquette and was placed in the tombs to protect the deceased and to invoke the aid of the deity of the dead, which is the one you were talking about. So look at that with the spine and the snake. It's also representative of the ladder that they had, copying Jacob's ladder. It's a counterfeit for everything. Okay, so let me go to the next slide now. So Nut was the only Egyptian god discredited by this plague, or wasn't the only Egyptian god discredited by this plague. Another disgraced Egyptian god was Seth, also known as Set, the Egyptian god of war, chaos, and storms. He was also the patron god of the pharaohs, particularly Ramses the Great. And we don't know if this is Ramses or not, but could very well be, since God came against Pharaoh here. He was known to protect the dead on the way to the afterlife. Seth was represented as a composite figure so it's the first one here, with a canine body, with slanting eyes, square-tipped ears, a tufted tail, and a long, curved, and pointed snout, compromising various animals, including the aardvark, antelope, camel, greyhound, jackal, long-snouted mouse, and pig. So they worshiped animals too. I mean, they're these gods they made out of animals. It's just crazy. Okay, and then the next one is that I have here is Egyptian god Seth. So in mythology, Greek mythology, Seth killed Osiris in an attempt to become the ruler of Egypt. However, Osiris and Isis's son Horus defeated Seth in combat. Seth then was adopted by the sun god Ra, which I think this is what you were talking about. He became the thunder in the sky and protected Ra from the chaos serpent Apophis, which I've heard of Apophis before, something with Tom Horn. I think he wrote a book on it. I'm not sure exactly what that is. And it says he protected Ra during the sun's nightly travel through the underworld. So they didn't believe that the sun went around the earth. They believed that it went into the earth, into basically hell.
That's exactly what I keep getting is every time I saw the underworld, they would talk about the afterlife. They really believe in hell. Like they
Yeah, they
knew
do.
there
And
was hell.
and hell
They-
could very well be in the center of the earth.
Right, oh, I believe that it is, and it just makes sense with the lava to me.
And the burning
The
fire and
burning, and the way the plates, in the ocean, like. It
and I
just
didn't
makes sense
I
to
didn't
me.
tell her that. She doesn't that's
About, like,
the plates I have to
yeah.
talk to you about afterwards.
Oh,
Something that
well,
I
that's
got.
what I
That's
always
TikTok.
believe. Oh, okay.
Irene,
Yes.
so yeah, the afterlife, well, mine, because of mine being the firstborn, they talk about the afterlife a lot. So beginning and end, beginning and end. And
Ah.
you'll hear that in my presentation on actually the Book of the Dead. So when I get to that, you'll see how that
Wow. You're either
kind of
written in
like
the book of
goes.
life or the book of oh my
Oh, I
gosh.
didn't even know there was a.
And
book
that's
of
on the
death.
Day of Atonement.
Yeah.
So so
biblical.
that'll bring it kind of full circle for
Yes.
you. I mean, I'm just going through mine. You
Yep,
guys
yep,
are
yep.
all hitting on some of the people that I have. I'm not giving you that definition like you are. You guys are really drilling down. Mine isn't very nice, but you'll see. You'll see.
Yep,
Well-
we don't have to be nice, we have to be truthful, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Right.
Okay. So now the next pagan god is Shu. So another god, Egyptian god that was put to shame by this plague was Shu, an ancient Egyptian god revered for his control of the air, wind, and lions. So that makes me think of the lion of the tribe of Judah. Typically depicted as a human form holding an Ankh symbol. So that's the symbol that's in his, if you're facing him, the hand on the right, not the big rod, but the one with the cross. So it's a T-shaped top with droplet-shaped loop depicting life itself. And didn't we say that that's in a lot of the church symbols?
Yes.
Yeah, that's from the pagan Egyptian gods.
Mhm.
So Shu was one of the first gods created by the creator sun god Ra. So this makes me realize that they think that they have a god that creates other gods.
Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness. And as the god of air, he was the deity who kept the earth and the sky from touching each other. I mean, that's just amazing to even think that you need to have that. Shu was considered to be a cooling and thus calming influence. Fog and clouds were also Shu's elements that were often called his bones, the fog and clouds. So everything associated with him is in the sky. Because of his position between the sky and the earth, he was also known as the wind. And is not the Holy Spirit known as the wind?
Everything you say.
Everything is counterfeit.
Is a counterfeit. God
Counterfeit.
is the sky, God is the clouds, God is the stars.
Everything.
God created it all, but they are trying to depict it because not one God can encompass it, so they.
They
had to-
didn't think one
they
God
had-
could.
Well,
but
they knew
only-
they,
yeah.
right, they just
They've
wanna
got
look.
thousands probably. I mean, I don't know how many, but there's
But
really
it-
only one true God.
But it is such a counterfeit, and it really is the way Satan works.
I know. So Shu and his sister and companion Tefnut, which she is the goddess of moisture, were the first couple of the group of 9 gods called the Ennead of Heliopolis. Shu was portrayed in human form with the hieroglyphic of his name and ostrich feather on his head. So he's the middle one there. Another god that God made a spectacle of and exposed as powerless by this plague was Geb. And so he's the one on the far right. And he is the Egyptian god of the earth. He was considered the father of snakes. And it was believed that his laughter created earthquakes. So it's like, wow, his laughter created earthquakes. and that he allowed the crops to grow. So they wouldn't grow unless he allowed it, giving him all this power. Geb could also be regarded as personified as fertile earth and a barren desert, the latter containing the dead or setting them free from their tombs, metaphorically described as Geb opening his jaws or imprisoning those not worthy to go to the fertile northern eastern heavenly called the field of reeds. And I'm going to show you the next one. So notice this picture on the left. So Geb was believed to have been originally engaged with Nut, which is the other god that I was talking about, and had to be separated from her by Shu. That's what this graphic is showing here on the left. Consequently, in mythological depictions, Geb was shown as a man reclining. So he's the one on the bottom here, the green guy, sometimes with his phallus still pointed towards Nut. And if you see it, his phallus is out pointing towards Nut. I mean, this is crazy. Geb and Nut together formed the permanent boundary between the primeval waters and the newly created world. So this picture shows Shu standing in the center, supporting the sky goddess Nut, who is arched above him, and the earth god Geb lying at his feet. And she's totally naked. I mean, it's even showing her. I mean, it's disgusting. And this was in that book. And I'm like, that's the graphic that I have. I mean, it's just crazy. So with this wrath of the plague of hail and fire, the Lord was showing Pharaoh and the people of Egypt that, quote, there is none like him in the earth. God could have wiped everything out, but he held back, allowing those who were willing to hear his word and to do his commands to be saved. So he could have just done it all in one foul thing, but he did it 10, which is means divine ordinal perfection. So he kept giving them time after time. Come on, people, listen. Okay, so a division was now felt between the Egyptians in the form of those that converted. So the ones that said, hey, this God is the real God and ours is fake. So they converted. So now there's a division between the Hebrews and those that are believing and those that are the Egyptians that are not. And so as shown by their obedience and willingness to escape the protection in their houses. Similarly, we are warned to make our houses a place of refuge from the world today, and we have been warned too. And that our warning is in the book of Revelation. This plague is eerily familiar with the first of 7 trumpets in the book of Revelation. So there's 7 bowls, 7 trumpets, and 7. What's the other one? Trumpets, bowls. Get what the third one is. There's another 7. Trumpets, bowls. Yeah, I'll keep going. I forget what the other one is. Trumpets commonly announce judgment in the Old Testament. In Zechariah 9:4, for example, the Lord himself, quote, will sound the trumpet and will march forth in the whirlwinds of the south. Similarly, in 4 Ezra 6:23, trumpets appear in a list of signs of impending judgments on the earth. Quote, the trumpet shall sound, and when all hear it, they shall be suddenly terrified. The early church Didache, which is the oldest surviving Christian church order, in 1606 lists trumpets as one of the final signs before the coming of the Lord. Quote, first the sign of an opening in heaven, which is the scroll rolling back, and then the sign of the sound of the trumpet. Revelation 8:7 says, the first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down to the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned. Ezekiel 38:22 has similar language to the first trumpet. There the Lord, quote, summons a sword against Gog in order to judge him, raining on his hordes, quote, torrential rains and hailstones, fire and sulfur. The reason for this apocalyptic destruction of God's enemy is to show God's greatness, holiness, and to, quote, make myself known in the eyes of many nations so that they will know that he is the Lord.
It's the seals.
The seals. So it's the first is the seals, then I think it's the trumpets, and then it's the bowls. The bowls is the wrath. So that's the end. Huh?
Isn't that where we're at?
I mean, it seems to be. So fire and hail appear in the book of Ezra as one of several signs of the end. Ezra 15:40-41 says, and great and mighty clouds full of wrath and tempest shall rise to destroy all the earth and its inhabitants. and shall pour out upon every high and lofty place a terrible tempest, fire and hail, and flying swords of floods and water, that all the fields and all the streams may be filled with the abundance of those waters. So this plague differs from the Egyptian plague with the introduction of blood. So the one in Egypt was hail mixed with fire. This is hail mixed with fire and blood, and it's mixed with it. It's not that the hail and the fire hit the earth and then causes blood. It is in the hail and the fire. So the plague differs from the Egyptian plague with the introduction of blood. It specifically refers to the blood as being mixed in it, not as a result of blood from the death of anything being hit by the hail and fire. The blood marks the plague as more terrible and more distinctly miraculous. One commentator claimed the first trumpet's call has at least one historical precedent found in Camille Flammarion's book, quote, The Atmosphere, where the blood red rain fell on a town near Genoa, Italy in 1744. So they're saying that this has already happened. There's a book about it. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But that's what they say, that this has happened once before.
And that's a miracle, that's a phenomenon, and most people will just go, okay, they move, but they forget.
Yeah. So blood rain, here's the word, is a phenomenon in which blood is perceived to fall from the sky in the form of rain. By the 17th century, explanations for the phenomenon had moved away from it being supernatural. So now they're trying to say it's natural, and they attempted to provide natural reasons. In the 19th century, blood rains were scientifically examined, and theories that dust gave the water its red color gained ground. Today, the dominant theories are that the rain is caused by red dust suspended in water, which is the rain dust, or by the presence of microorganisms. According to the Greek mythology, Zeus, this blew me away, a Greek god of the sky and thunder, twice caused a rain of blood. So in their Greek mythology, they say Zeus did this, but God really did it. Remember, they have lying miracles. And so on one occasion, Zeus, he did this to warn the slaughter in battle. Given God showed up to the pagan gods in Exodus with real, not symbolic plagues, it is more likely that somehow God mixes blood into the mix, making it another supernatural event of a miracle within a miracle within a miracle. So the first one in Exodus was a miracle within a miracle. Now this is three miracles, a miracle within a miracle within a miracle. So the hail, fire, and blood will destroy things in thirds, which is very interesting. So why are they destroyed in thirds? In each of the first four trumpets, things are destroyed in thirds, perhaps to indicate God's judgment is only beginning. Oh, and this is just reminding me of, I didn't even realize this, your threes last week. It happens 1, 2, 3, and then judgment. 1, 2, 3, judgment. 1, 2, 3, and then the last one is, which will be 10, final judgment. So he gives 3 warnings and then judgment. And so these are the first 3 are the warnings, and then he brings judgment. It's like the wrath.
Yeah, and it makes sense, because like what April just said, that she's got it all, like all 9 plagues must finish at the end. But he began it with the blood.
Yeah.
So he's trying to show you, well, if you don't believe this, now I got that.
Yep.
And now I got this, and we just keep
It
raising the
keeps
bar.
like
Raising the bar.
escalating. Yeah.
And it's just, and the handwriting is on the wall,
Wow.
and no one wants to listen. And that's what's happening today.
Wow. So in each of the first 4 trumpets, things are destroyed in thirds, perhaps to indicate God's judgment is only beginning, like April said, and it is far from complete. These are warnings to mankind, and actually, so I'm on the last slide, that God's wrath is burning against them. The thirds may loosely be based on Ezekiel 5, the prophet who shaves his head and divides his hair into thirds. Each third represents the judgment on Jerusalem. A third died by fire, plague, and famine inside the city. A third died by sword, and a third is scattered to the wind. In the judgment described by Zechariah in 13, 8 and 9, 2/3 of the land will be cut off, and only a third will remain. Even that third will be refined by fire before they call upon the name of the Lord. So actually, with this one, 1/3 is gone. But then there's a more in the book of Revelation than out of the 2/3 left. I forget if it's another third are gone or if it's half of it's gone. So he takes out a lot of people in the 1/3, but then there's a lot more taken out again.
But that's what's happened already in like Greece is the only reference I have for it. That I actually was Santorini when the volcano came and how it separated the actual island, and it's just amazing to me. That's what's coming to my mind as I've seen this happen. Like I could actually see Florida being on its own peninsula and having every, by itself now. And then the thing, breaking off the continents, like the water coming through. Like I could see that.
Wow.
Like with an earthquake, with the
Or underwater
Place,
earthquake, I mean,
yes.
that's,
can separate.
Should separate, that's the word.
Separate
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
United States.
continual separation and refinement.
yes. Because we're supposed to be separate
Yes.
people, set apart. And if you're not going to be, he'll do it for you.
And like when he said, remember, was it, what story, but it was when he said, will you save 10 people? Will you
Right.
save 5?
Yep.
That's what's coming to me is like, who's going to be saved?
Oh,
You
T's
know.
T's the next one, I'm thinking, okay, so, and you have one slide. Okay, oh wait, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
T's
me.
turn, yeah. Okay, so now T is gonna go into the 9th plague.
That is very interesting.
So this is covered in Exodus 10, 21, 23. Then the Lord said to Moses, lift up your hand towards the heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even thick darkness. And Moses lifted up his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, nor rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. So I have not gone as deeply as Rini did. And I took another little, a different path here. And what I want to do, first of all, is recap what is a plague. And a plague, by definition, is to cause continued trouble or distress, to afflict, to bedevil, to torture, to torment,
Oh.
to trouble, beset, curse, and dog.
What do you mean by dog?
Yeah, what
Like
is,
if you dog somebody, you're like biting at them,
Ah.
like doggedly
Yeah.
doggedly pursuing
Ah.
someone. It's like tenacious, like a dog.
Yeah, if you
just
think about
don't
nasty
stop.
dog.
well, that's funny. They came up with a saying years ago, like you're a dog. You're
Yeah.
a dog. I used to hear that.
Right.
But that's what it's God to turn
Turn back.
backwards. They just want to.
Oh.
Right.
Huh.
Interesting. So, and another definition is an instrument of God's wrath, a punishment for unrighteousness. So that's another definition of plague. So darkness is the 9th plague, and darkness is the contrast of light, and also, which is light that we see, but it's also the contrast of enlightenment, which is knowledge. So the question is, why? Why does God have this plague coming upon the Egyptians? The reason is because as humans, people are figuring out things, they're coming up with ideas, they're using their imagination to explain what they see. So one of the most powerful things that they see is that the sun is essential to life. Its power is essential. So they focus on the sun and create the sun to be God. God, Echad, the Lord, is not happy about that because he wants to be worshipped. He does not want us worshiping anything else. So that's the problem here, is that humans are worshiping something other than God. So he's going to correct them. And in this, and all of these plagues are specific to the God that's being named. God is bringing specific counter or an opposite to what they're honoring or what they're worshiping in that God.
And what's coming to my mind too is, because it's the sun god Ra,
Yes.
and what's this, Constantine in like 300
Sunday.
changed it to Sunday because he worshipped the sun god.
And he
Right.
was a pagan. He wasn't even.
Yep. And all the church teachings were from him, and he was trying to bring the pagans together with the true believers. And so he compromised it, and this is okay. And let's be separate from them. Let them do it on Saturday still, but we'll do it on Sunday.
And you know what's coming to me is that just like with COVID, they said, okay, let's close the churches, let's close everything because this is we got this COVID thing going on. And everybody like sheep just followed. Nobody questioned it. And
That's
anybody who
what-
did got in trouble.
Most people in church, that's what they do. They
whatever
have a spoon to eat whatever they're being
Wow,
fed, and they don't
makes
study to
sense.
see that they're being fed lies.
So that's the why, is that God will not be encouraging or allowing us to worship something else. So we have the essence of power, life and power and protection. People are always looking for protection. So what happens here is that the Pharaoh piggybacks on that. If the sun is being recognized by humans looking out saying that's the most powerful thing, the Pharaoh claims to be the sun
that's
because
right.
he's claiming that power for himself.
Wow, that's a
Okay.
really
Yeah, and
good-
that's in April's, because Pharaoh was the big god in April's, but
Right.
they consider
Right.
themselves gods.
Right. So the question is how? So how does God show them that he's more powerful than the sun? Well, he blots out the sun. He makes everything dark. So in essence, I found this was interesting because it was like the sun was covered in sackcloth. Wow. Which is sort of an interesting. So
Well,
God,
and what's coming to my mind is when they mourn, don't they cover themselves in sackcloth?
yes,
So they're
Oh, the
mourning.
Jews.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the Bible, everybody,
With,
yeah, when you're
oh,
mourning.
we all did.
in the
sackcloth.
Bible.
Really?
Right.
I know I've heard it, but I didn't know exactly what sackcloth was.
It's a
like
sign
you-
of
and
mourning.
you cover your head with ashes and sackcloth, so nothing to adorn yourself. It's a sign, outward sign of sadness.
Okay,
So in this case, the sun is
Wow.
showing sadness because God is saying,
Yeah,
I
don't
am your
worship
God,
me,
you're my
worship my God.
creation.
Yeah.
So the sun is being taken out, not showing its light. So
What's that?
There's the sackcloth is well used in the when the Jews do their Shiva, they cover their head as well as the mirrors because of that depiction of who they are. They're not supposed to be seen. So that material's not super thick, but it's kind of like a veil, if you will. So they put it over the mirrors, they put it over their heads. So that's kind of sort of in their way of sitting Shiva.
Right,
Wow.
right.
Well, look how much you're learning about this stuff.
That
That's
is-
amazing.
Unfortunately, my first husband was Jewish, so I kind of was in a few shivas more than I'd like to be, but I was in a few of them.
So in the darkness, we don't know where we're going, so we don't have light to see. And also in the darkness, we don't have knowledge.
Or
So
wisdom.
we're blinded because we're blinded by the darkness now instead of the light, okay? So when does this happen? This happens for 3 days. The 3 days means 3, and that would be an interesting study. We've been looking at it, and it would be a longer thing to go into, but 3 means completion. So there's always a 1, 2, 3 count. It's like 1, 2, 3 strikes and you're out. So it's 3 days is complete. I did read something that said that there is a belief. Some people have a belief that it takes a soul 3 days to leave the body. So it's almost as if you were struggling or for 3 days, you're wrestling with yourself to accept what's going on or not. So
I'm just wondering if they're not going to heaven, because it says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But those that are not going to heaven,
But she's
Yes.
saying their soul, not their spirit.
yeah, but your soul and spirit are connected. When you die, there's,
Oh, okay,
right,
that's,
you've
okay.
dropped your body.
Gotcha.
yeah, the only
but-
thing that doesn't go is your
And
body.
we are 3-part beings. You have
right.
spirit, soul, and body.
And so maybe just explain that a little bit about spiritual and body.
Okay, so spirit is the continual connection to God. That's the image of God that's in us. our soul is our mind, our will, and our emotion, and the body is the physical body that the
Yeah.
soul is contained in.
And so as we're here on earth, God's refining our soul. Our spirit
Yes.
is already perfect because we are one with him in spirit. But our soul is what needs to be refined to believe what our spirit already knows.
He already made us in his image, which is perfection.
Yeah,
But we, our mind, will, and emotions, which is our,
that's the
Right.
the sanctification process that we go through while we're here.
Right. So interestingly, we could go more into the numbers, but it was interesting that the darkness is the 9th plague. And
We think of the 9th of Av, which is when the temples came down. 9 is judgment.
okay, so also, you have 3 cycles of 3, so you have 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Did you get it right? No, you're gonna go through 3 more. Did you get it right? No,
Oh,
you're
and then
gonna go through
3
3
again,
more.
right? Double threes.
Now you have 3, 3, 3, and
Oh my-
stop and think about what is the symbol that the Egyptians had that they honored were cats. And what do we say about cats?
9 lives.
They have 9
Oh
lives.
my gosh.
Yes, they have 9
9
lives.
That's just crazy.
Which is interesting. And then another thing that I read was that Ra, who is given the name of the sun god, one of the people there, had 9 sons. So there's 9, and there's a name for that. It's a special council of 9 people. So
You know what's
9,
coming to me?
not 9 people, 9 gods. So the 9 met together. So that number 9 is it's not by accident that it keeps showing up.
And guess what a novena is?
9. And giving birth is
Novena.
9.
They did 9
months.
days of prayer.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And 9 days is gestation. 9
9
9 months
months.
is gestation.
Birthing
So
something.
these things keep repeating. So so where did this happen? Where did these 3 days of darkness happen? Well, it did not happen in Goshen.
Yeah,
Goshen
the
is where
believers
the
did not
Hebrews
get
were.
affected by it.
The believers were not
We're
affected
told
by
that
it.
we
So
do.
we are shown that God is separating. He's showing these people are favored. These people are experiencing my wrath because of what they're doing.
So chances are we're not going to experience the 3 days of darkness because we are set apart. But you have to really be set apart in order, otherwise you're going through the darkness. Oh my.
So on a lighter note, this was really interesting.
Is there a lighter note?
Yeah, there is. It's sort of funny. So what, think of the Egyptians as people looking around and trying to make sense of what they see, what the natural world is, and knowing that they themselves didn't create it, they're just here experiencing it. So now they're trying to make explanations about all of these things. And that's why in man's imagination, they've created all these gods. So one of the other symbols that the Egyptians used, because they saw scarabs. Scarabs are beetles, and beetles, one of the
What'd you
things
say?
that
The name in Spanish is carabajos.
Oh,
okay,
okay.
so the beetles come from dung, and they roll dung. So
Ew.
they get large, and they are seen visibly pushing dung.
What's dumb?
Poop.
I thought so, but I
Yes.
couldn't.
And when you said that, I'm just thinking the name of the band, the Beatles. What a name to take.
Oh, that's
All
interesting.
insects, all.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
what they were observing is that the beetle is rolling the dung, and they parallel that to the blessings of the sun moving across the
Oh, for God's
horizon.
sake.
So
Ugh.
the sun moves across. So consequently, because they honor the sun and they want the blessings of the sun, they wear scarabs like medallions.
Yeah.
And okay, I forget. I think it's April has one of the gods has a beetle on the top of is a crown.
Because they wear they wear the scarabs.
But even, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But even when I live in Asheville, that was in, and I own one.
Like everybody would wear them.
Wear what?
A beetle necklace?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Wow.
It was
It
like
looks-
this
yeah.
super, you will wear, there's something like like everybody.
Wow.
You know what's making me,
I never heard of it.
everybody's wearing these beads too around their, a lot of people, men that
Beads.
don't wear jewelry.
Excuse me. I
Yep.
can't, I couldn't hear what Gina said. What was that you said?
Oh, good. Say it again what you said.
Sorry, that in Asheville, when I used to live there, like, 10 years ago, everybody will wear the beetle, the
Scarab.
crown.
Oh,
I even own one. It was like you will put it like right on your neck, and you will make sure that everybody can see it. And they came in black, gold, and silver.
And they're wearing it around their wrists.
And it was like,
wow. Okay, thank you.
And it was popular. It was like a jewelry.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like a charm.
And a lot of men are wearing it on sea.
Yeah.
Weird.
Okay, so, another interesting thing is the falcon. Let me get my notes here. And the falcon is a symbol that we see a lot in the hieroglyphics, and you see that some of the gods, and Ra has the falcon head. And the falcon is, again, it's an example of people looking to see. Well, the falcon is a hunter bird who's very successful. And there's a quote that said, "He who is above." So they're seeing this falcon soaring above, that they see its strength, they see its power, because people are always looking for strength and power. And they see the success of the falcon, so they take that as a symbol of strength, and they apply it to their gods. So the idea of the falcon was he who is above.
And what's coming to my
Almost.
mind is you keep saying that they see. So they're looking with the physical
With
eyes when
physical
we're supposed to
eyes.
look into the spiritual realm, which is where God is, because he's a spirit. And they just, I guess, don't understand the spiritual realm. So they make
Right.
everything physical.
Right.
They have to have a reason for it.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Science.
So the god, there are three gods up there. There is Atum. He is the primordial god from whom all else arises. He is given he is the evening sun. And then these gods, they come up again and again in different civilizations. They just, their names morph and change.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's where we think of Ra as the sun god. And what I want to do now is just, I'll read briefly the two others that are there. There's Horus. Is that the one with Horus?
No, but
It's
that's
the
okay.
next one.
I've got
Horus.
Amon-Re,
There's
Aten, and then Ra.
Okay.
But I mean, that doesn't mean you
Which
can't
are
go.
the same. It's
Ra.
Atum, Horus, and Thoth. They basically, the names are almost interchangeable. They are a different aspect of these gods. So God is specifically, God, our Lord and God is specifically attacking and showing them his superiority over these gods.
Yep.
And these manifest aspects of these gods.
Which there's one true God, and they've got all thousands of
Right.
these pagan things,
And it's what
and he
they,
just puts them all the same.
it's what they see. So another god is Horus. So Ra is the sun, and he has the what's the word? I lost it here, sorry. The above. He's above.
Mm-hmm.
Horus is below, and he's the moon, the light of the moon. So Ra is the light of the sun. The sun is reflected at night in the moon.
Yep.
So now the darkness, in this days of darkness, the moon is also dark. And
Because
that's
the sun's not shining
because
on
the
it.
sun's not shining, the moon is also dark. So here's just a little bit about Horus. Horus was believed to be the first divine king of Egypt, meaning that all other pharaohs were descendants of Horus. Horus was the protector of every ruler of Egypt, and pharaohs were believed to be living Horus. He was associated with kingship and was a personification of royal and divine power.
Hmm.
Scholars argue that Horus may have been used to describe and justify the supreme power of the pharaohs. By identifying the pharaoh with Horus, who represented the divine right, the right to rule over all the land, the pharaoh was granted the same power, and his rule was theologically justified.
Theological,
Yes.
theology, the
course.
teachings of the
Because there's-
church.
Well,
They teach
theo-
theology.
Theo means God.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they're recognizing a earthly power, a worldly power. We see the world and we can touch it.
Yeah,
But there's a God power that we can't touch.
yeah,
That we're trying to identify and name.
yeah.
I think it seems to me, it seems like that's what's going on. So that's Horus. So we have the sun, the moon being affected with the darkness. That takes care of it, pretty much of the physical, what we're seeing. The third god here is Thoth. And Thoth is the Egyptian god of writing. So listen to this and you'll see how, because I thought, well, how does that tie in? You'll see how it ties in. One of the most important gods of ancient Egypt, Thoth, was worshipped as early as the pre-dynasty period, 5000 BCE.
So you were talking about the first dynasty, so about the same
Right.
time.
And during the Hellenistic period, that's Greek, and also during the Greek period, the Greeks equated him with Hermes. They called him Hermes Trismegistus, I'm not sure how, or thrice greatest, 3 times great.
Wow.
Commonly represented in human form with the head of an ibis water bird. He is also known by the name Jehudi, which means he who is like the iris.
Which is the eye, in the center of the eye, right? An iris of your eye.
And the bird eye, thank you. I didn't make that connection. It's good. In some illustrations, he's depicted as a baboon and takes the form of Enai, who presides over the judgment of the dead with Osiris. Some legends say that he created himself through the power of language. In other stories, he was born from the forehead of Seth, the Egyptian god of chaos, war, and storms, as well as from the lips of Ra. Okay.
Well, and this is, because God created the world by speaking it. So
speaking,
once again, a
exactly.
perversion
So see how important this is fundamental.
of what words are, how
And this
important
is-
they are.
Knowledge. So as a god of writing and knowledge, that's Thoth.
It's what? Toph?
Thoth.
Okay.
Thoth. As the god of writing and knowledge, Thoth is believed to have invented hieroglyphics. Those are the paintings on the wall
just
that
said
tell
that.
the
Writing
story.
on the wall.
That's the writing. The written magical treatise he also is to have invented, supposedly, the written magical treatise about the afterlife, the heavens, and the earth. He also is considered to be the scribe of the gods and a patron of all the arts. The Emerald Tablet is attributed to him. The Emerald Tablet is thought to contain the secrets of the world, hidden away for centuries only to be found by initiates in later generations. That secrets of the world is knowledge. So when we talk about Thoth, so what is God saying? You are not creating.
Yeah.
I am the creator. I'm the one who gives the light. I'm the one who enlightens people on this. So it's very clear what God is speaking to us here in the darkness. And the only other thing I wanted to point out is that in the darkness where it says, and I don't have it in Revelation, but that you will not even be able to see your hand in front of your
Yeah,
face.
maybe we should look that
So
up.
it's that you are totally blind, even to the point of not knowing, KNOW, where to go. So you don't dare move. You stand where you are, you stay where you are, you don't see anything. You are just stopped for 3 days to experience God and his power.
What keeps coming to me as you're speaking is how God is showing us what's coming.
Yes.
We are going to know,
Everyone will
the
see.
hidden, the secret and hidden things are being exposed.
Yes.
Where
The
is it?
darkness, we're coming out of the darkness into the light
Come on.
spiritually. That is fabulous.
Revelation 16:10.
16:10.
Yeah, you want to look at Revelation 16:10? It's not showing me on here, it's just telling me Revelation 16:10.
I like your note, Ryan.
Yeah,
I like
right.
your notes.
Yes.
She's amazing. She circled.
Oh, you know why? There it is. You had more than one slide.
Yeah,
There's
then-
Horus,
and
and
they're all the same.
Thoth.
They're the same names interchanging, just different aspects. So
16:10.
Revelation 16:10 this is 16:10.
That's not it?
No,
Goodness.
bear with us.
Yep, we're just trying to find it. Just open this up, see if it says it in it. Okay, now I see that it says Revelation 9:1 through 21,
Thank you.
I think.
1 through 20?
I think so. And it says it's a demonic darkness.
Wow.
When hell is let loose.
Well. Let's continue, maybe. I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't have that connection.
It says 9, when he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. And out of the smoke, locusts came to the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God in their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. So 3 days is what we're expecting.
So
Yes.
It's basically verse 2 where it says, the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit.
Okay. Mine says when he opened the abyss, smoke rose from the
Mhm.
smoke of the gigantic furnace. Sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss.
So, and the abyss, as we understand it, is hell, right?
It's hell.
And from what I understand, all of the demons that are in there,
They're gonna
in the
be
end, they're
released.
coming out. That's why with the Fatima revelation, they say that you're going to be in your house, and here, what a deception. We're not going to be affected. Only the people that are not believers will be affected. But that you're going to hear your child outside the door, let me in, let me in. And it's a demon. It's not your child. So do
They
not
just
open the
wanna
door.
come
And they
in.
say cover everything with garbage bags, cover all your windows, everything, so you don't see outside. You're not going to see anyway. You don't
Yeah,
have to.
that's very true.
You know,
won't
it's
see-
going to be black.
Yeah.
And so I was telling them when we were practicing this on Thursday, probably 10 years ago, I was on vacation in New Hampshire and I was staying in a house that I was in the basement. So it was a basement with no windows. And I went to go to bed, so I had to turn out the light, which was all the way on one wall, and my bed was all the way over there. So I had to make it from there to the bed. And when I turned off the light, I couldn't see anything. And I felt like in my spirit, it was saying, this is what it's going to be like in the 3 days of darkness. And so I'm walking, and I walked into a pole because it was in the middle of the room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't see. I had put my hand in front of my face. I'm like, I cannot see my hand. I mean, I literally did that. And it was like, that's what he was saying. It's thick darkness.
I've often wondered about that. I put my hand many times.
You can't see it.
And you can't see when you've been that kind of, but that's like no light.
That's
Yeah,
it. There
it's
is no
You know
light.
what I mean? It's just absolutely. no
And
light.
what's coming to my mind too is just with September 11th, with all of that raining down on them, the ash from the
Yeah.
building falling down, and then, because I remember somebody going inside of a place with the glass, and then it went right by, and everything was completely,
Yes.
you couldn't, it was thick
Big smoke.
matter.
Yes,
Wow.
and we can't even conceive.
No,
It's like when John explains what happens in Revelation, he's explaining with the best he has with his imagination, what he saw.
yeah, because he doesn't see things how we do. Technology has changed things.
And everything he said with horses and bowls and seals was all symbolic. We had to understand what the seals meant. And we're still
Right.
like, I don't care how much we study, we're gonna learn something new. And I like my sister and I were like, she said to me, why do we have to learn about these gods? I'm like, I don't know, but I know we're gonna figure it out. And we are.
Yeah,
We
because
can
they're
figure it
around
out.
today.
There's exactly, who'd have ever dreamed?
And when you read that, it was not only talking about darkness, it was talking about scorpions and about locusts, and it was more than,
But it's
it was like
everything-
he was bringing it all together.
It's coming together, I think now.
And this is
April-
like the ninth
Yes.
one, and now we're going into
the
April's.
10th. It's gonna
And
tell
so
you-
hers is the 10th plague, which is the death of the firstborn. So he's like, 3 strikes, you're out. Now that's it. I'm getting,
Three,
this is like the
six,
final
nine.
judgment.
Done.
So you're up, April.
Okay, so fortunately, you guys touched on a lot of my gods and goddesses,
no
so
wor-
I'll try to
no
explain it from.
Yep.
I'm going to explain it from a completely different level. It seems like it's going from the firstborn, so the beginning. Okay. So
Yep.
after instructing Moses and Aaron to command all of Israel to celebrate the Passover as an eternal festival, God promised that if they obeyed his command, their lives would be spared by the angel of death passed over Egypt. In Exodus 12, and 13, I'll read that for you. That was in the beginning. We had already read this, but just to give you an intro. On that same night, I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. References to striking down the firstborn and executing judgment against pagan gods can also be found in the book of Numbers 3:13. For all the firstborns are mine. On the day I strike down all the firstborns in the land of Egypt, I sanctify to myself all the firstborn in Israel, from man to beast. They shall be mine. I am the Lord. And then Numbers 33, verse 4 says, while the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn, who the Lord had struck down among them, the Lord had also executed judgments on their gods. So he took care of that as well as what I read. So I've got 6 different plagues and or people, if gods or goddesses, if you will. So Tawaret is the first one. We will now look at the Egyptian god and goddesses that these plagues exposed as powerless. The first one we'll cover is Tawaret. And most of them, they're she's. She's the Egyptian goddess of fertility and childbirth. Again, fertility and childbirth, you're going to hear through this whole exercise. She was also depicted as a hippopotamus, again, creatures, standing with 2 legs, 2 limbs similar to those of a feline. She was also known with saggy breasts, a female wig, paws of a lion, and a tail that resembled a Nile crocodile. This hybrid look makes Tawaret one of the more unique deities of Egyptian mythology. The name Tawaret means she who is great or the great female one. She is also called the Lady of the Birth House. In ancient Egypt, the hippopotamus was an integral part of daily life and rituals. The animal was both feared and venerated. While male hippos often represented chaos, female hippos symbolized safety and protection, which of course women are. These creatures, represented by various gods, had to be routinely placated with offerings to ensure safety to those who worked near the riverbanks and used boats on the River Nile. Egyptian hippopotamus goddesses such as Reret, Ipet, and Tawaret originated from these early worship of the hippopotamus. Images of hippopotami have been found in ancient Egypt objects, including amulets and jewelry. kind of sort of what you were talking about with the beetle, but I'll go into that. Other Egyptians have hypothesized that Taweret didn't derive from an early hippo worship. According to their theory, she was a manifestation of existing goddesses such as Ipet, Reret, and Hedjet. Taweret is attested since the Old Kingdom, but began to acquire wide fame and became renowned only after her association with other hippo goddesses, and especially with Hathor, with whom she is sometimes equated. In later times, she was associated with Isis and was also said to be the consort of other Egyptian gods by the name of Bes. Another pagan goddess put to shame by the one true God was an Egyptian named Wajet, shown in a cobra curled around Papathis stem. Wajet is also known to Buto, Edjo, or Wajet, the ancient Egypt goddess of protection. She was predominantly worshipped in Lower Egypt, serving in the pantheon as the protector goddess of the region. Along with Nekbet, the vulture goddess of Upper Egypt, the goddess Wajet was revered as the joint protector of Egyptian kings. Wajet's worship started in a local area called Perwajet or Buto. However, over time, she became the patron deity of Lower Egypt by the Old Kingdom era. Wajet perfectly embodied the affairs of Lower Egypt. Around the same time, her sister, the vulture goddess Nekbet, was worshipped as the patron and protector goddess of Upper Egypt. Thus, Wajet and Nekbet became to the tutelary or guardian protector deities of whole Egypt. With regard to the family of Wajet, another myth states that she was the daughter of the sun god Ra, which is what Tess said, or Atum, A-T-U-M. In that myth, her father sends her in the personification of an eye to find the goddess Tefnut, moisture, and the sun Shu, which is air. Wajet successfully brings the two gods from the waters of Nun, which is a primordial water, which means pertaining to or existing from the beginning, that existed before creation. Ra was so pleased with Wajet's work that he bestowed an enormous honor upon her. He commanded her to be beside him in the form of a cobra in order to save him and or protect him. According to some ancient Egypt beliefs, the goddess Wajet took fellow Lower Egypt deity Hapi or Hapi as her consort. Dawn, you talked about this person, this goddess. Hapi is the ancient Egyptian god of water and fertility. According to another myth, she was associated with Seth and or Patath, which is the god of destruction. Patat, the god of Seth is the god of destruction. Patath is the god of creation and craftsman. Wajet's protection also extended beyond the Egyptian ruler and or his household. It was believed that the goddess protected women, particularly those in childbirth. This was evident when she offered her protection to the goddess Isis and in the infant god Horus. Wajet kept the mother and the child safe in the Nile Delta. This kept them away from the evil actions of Horus, which is Uncle Set, the god of destruction and chaoses. And you'll hear more about this as I go because they're just throwing out their names, but they'll tell you who they are and who they belong to.
Yep.
As a tutelary guardian protector, deity of the Lower Egypt, Wajet was often depicted with the sun disk that was a rearing cobra, known as a uraeus. The symbol has the image of Nekbet, making it as representation of the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The uraeus was used to show royalty, sovereignty, and divinity of the Egyptian ruler. It was represented by a headdress over the forehead as an emblem of supreme power. By combining protector deities of Lower and Upper Egypt, the king was communicating his complete sovereignty over all Egypt. The third Egyptian goddess, Machnenet, was also known as the goddess associated with childbirth, motherhood, and destiny. By breathing, which I found very interesting, by breathing into each newborn child, Meskenet gave each child Ka, which is a spiritual entity believed to live within the body during and after life, a part of their soul. I thought that was okay. From what you were saying, Irene, about the spirit and the soul.
Hear me?
Yes,
Did I
that's
get-
crazy.
The goddess, I'm sorry.
So we had gotten that
Uh,
Ka,
Just putting it out there, I guess I'll put it out
why
there.
not?
Yeah, so I was directed to look up the breakdown of the name Kamala and Ka. I discovered that from that. And Mala, what was Mala? I forget what Mala meant. It was an Egyptian god. I forget.
With the beads.
Oh yeah, and where they prayed to the Egyptian god on beads like a rosary.
Yes, I did remember you saying that, Irene.
Yep.
The goddess was responsible for creating the Ka, and therefore she was associated with fate. Because of the time of the child's birth, she determined its destiny. From the New Kingdom, which is 1550 to 1069 BC onwards, this particular role of Meskenet was taken by the male god She. That symbolized the concept of fate in Egyptian mythology. Sometimes She was believed to be a female, and other time he was Meskevet's husband. So I guess they play both.
Yeah, it was reminding me of Dawn, where she said they were, what's that word you
They
use?
were
Androgynous.
transgender.
Transgender.
Right.
they-
So what's coming to me is all about what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Both are mentioned in the Book of the Dead. So here we go. The Book of the Dead, a collection of ancient Egyptian books with elaborate illustrations containing prayer, hymns, incantations, and formulas for behavior of the souls of the dead. Don't know why that was kind of put in there, but I was thinking that maybe because of the transgender thing, it's the Book of the Dead. I don't know, but just
Well,
my
what's
thoughts.
coming in my mind is they're on actually Halloween, which is the Day of the Dead. The people
Right.
build altars for their loved ones, and they would bring them food and they would bring them drinks, honoring their dead loved ones. Sort of like, you know, how with the mummies of the Egyptian kings,
Yes.
like until they get to the afterlife, they had them all their stuff. You know, they would bring them stuff as if they were stuck and not there yet. And the Day of the Dead,
Hence the word when they're
Halloween.
talking about prayer, hymns, and incantations of formulas of behavior for the souls.
Ugh.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't like that either, but okay. Meskenet's name can be interpreted as happenings or coincidence, as the coincidence of the omens usually accompany birth and determine destiny. But she was also known as Meskevet, the place of lighting. She was a highly respected household deity mentioned in a large number of prayers and hymns and venerated from the earliest of times by ancient Egyptians. There was no cult site devoted to her. Most of Meskenet's depictions were found on birthing bricks. This is very different, but they're found on birthing bricks. In ancient Egypt, women delivered babies while squatting on a pair of bricks known as birthing bricks. And Meskenet was the goddess associated with this delivery tradition. She was sometimes depicted with a characteristic headdress of a cow's uterus, and her head probably symbolized the womb, while other depictions showed her as a birthing brick with a human head. In her hand, she is I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, it reminded me of when people were protesting in Washington
Me
D.C. with the uteruses on their head.
Exactly what came to my mind.
Yeah, the
Crazy,
uterus.
crazy. Okay. In her hand, she's holding the Ankh. That's what you talked about, Irene, that little cross symbol. Well,
Yep.
they call it the symbol of life. In ancient Egypt, tradition birthing bricks played an important role. Birthing bricks were carried in, and a simple construction took shape in the middle of the room, which looked like a stone stool. So it was like a square little, stool, if you will, and it was all made out of stone. When
Okay.
labor pains became insistent, Hatshepsut, or Queen of Egypt, would be lifted onto this device, and this would take the delivery of the baby easier for the mother while allowing the attendant and or midwife access to assist in the delivery. So they're sitting on this thing, and I'm picturing a little hole, and it lets the baby fall. That's
Oh,
what
wow.
I'm picturing.
Huh.
Mesquinet was not only related to birth and fate, but she was also considered a funerary, which is like funeral of the dead, goddess, participating in the judgment of the deceased, helping them in their rebirth and afterlife. Again, afterlife.
Oh my.
This role she played was somewhat similar to what Mesquinet had in life, or more exactly as the beginning of life. So again, it's kind of crazy. She starts in the beginning, but she could
Yeah.
also be at the end. So I don't know. Both Egyptian gods, Anubis, which is a god of tombs and had a head of a jackal. The Mesquinet participated in afterlife ceremonies, but their responsibilities were different. Okay, turn the page. Another pagan god put to shame was Osiris. Dawn, you know of Osiris. The green-skinned god of the underworld, known as afterlife, and the judge of dead, who was one of the best-known gods from ancient Egypt. His story provided his followers with reassurance of life after death, that the Nile would keep their lands fertile, and it was an inspiration for what a king should be. He's the only one that is referred to in the ancient Egypt writings simply as God, a surefire indication Osiris was both powerful and popular. Being considered a good god, Osiris was also credited with teaching humanity agriculture, the arts, religion, laws, and morality. And his followers really enjoyed holding festivals in his honor. Okay, so this is the beginning of Osiris. The name Osiris is the Greek form of an Egyptian name, Asir or Aser, which may mean the powerful, the one who sees the throne, or the one who presides on the throne. Later on, Osiris became known as An-Nefer, which means to open, appear, or make manifest good things or beauty. In the 5th dynasty, this is reflecting 2513 to 2374 BC. Osiris was also a member of Ekned, aka the Great Ekned and Ened of Heliopolis. Oh, I said it right. Okay. In a group of 9 Egyptian deities, which was worshipped primarily, Heliopolis, this is an ancient ruined city, but whose influence spread to the rest of Egypt as well. That's also when Osiris became known as the first child of, wait for this, girls, Geb and Nut.
Oh, for God's
So Osiris was the child of Geb and Nut. They were the children of Shu and Tefnut, the creation of the first god, Atum. Osiris' siblings were Set, Nephthys, and Isis. Those are the ones that you had, Irene.
Yeah.
These three being played key roles in the Osiris myth. And this is just a little tidbit of Osiris. Osiris was considered the first king of Egypt, and so earthly rulers honored him and established their own authority by carrying the crook and the flail. The crook stood for kingship, which was guidance of the people, while the flail was associated with fertility of the land, threshing wheat. The crook and the flail were associated with an early powerful god named Ajeti or Enjeti, who came to be absorbed by Osiris. Once
Can I
Osiris was
Can I just interject
Sorry.
really quickly, because you're talking about the crook? That's what the bishop carries, a crook.
Shepherds.
the guidance of the people.
Wow.
Wow, is right. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Once Osiris was established in tradition as the first king, his son Horus also came to be associated with Pharaoh's reign. So let's go to Horus. This is what you talked about, T. Horus was another Egyptian god discredited for his plague. He was featured as a royal man with a head of a falcon or hawk, often holding a scepter and ankh, the symbol of life, which is what Irene mentioned. I'll never look at that symbol again the same.
Oh.
With white and red crown represented the unity, his white and red crown represented the unity between Upper and Lower Egypt. Horus is also seen as having the body of a lion, the head of a hawk, and even as a sphinx. The name Horus means the one far above, which indicated his importance above all the other gods of Egypt. So he's also known as sun god, war god, hunter's god, king of godship, god of the dawn, keeper of secret wisdom, son of truth, Horus the Avenger, and Horus, Lord of the Two Lands. Because of many different names and forms of Horus, Egyptianologists find it impossible to identify the one true falcon god. Despite the many different variations, Horus is also seen as the ruler of the gods, represented by a falcon. He was also known as the patron saint of the existing pharaoh, who was also referred to as the living Horus. The earliest forms Horus is known for as Horus the Elder, first seen in the pre-dynastic Upper Egypt. Neighboring tribes most likely brought stories of Horus into Egypt. Egyptians quickly adopted him into Egyptian mythology as the son of Ra, and one of the creator gods. Horus took the form of the falcon and flew up at the beginning of time as part of the creation. Also known as Horus of two eyes, his left eye represented the sun and his right eye represented the moon. With the power of the sun and the healing of the moon, Horus ruled both day and night. In the earliest form,
Did she lock up? Oh, no. She's locked, looks like she's locked up.
she is
Oh.
I'm good. Responsible for the sun's path
Okay,
across the sky.
April, you
Yes.
locked up, and so we missed like the last minute.
How would it go back?
Okay.
Go back to his eyes being the sun and the moon.
Okay, cool.
Locked up.
Okay. Horus took the form of a falcon and flew up at the beginning of the time as part of creation, also known as Horus with two eyes. His left eye represented the sun. His right eye represented the moon. With the power of the sun and the healing of the moon, Horus ruled both day and night. In the earliest forms, Egyptians viewed him as the brother of Osiris and Seth. Over time, Egyptians began to combine the idea of Horus and Ra into one god, which is Ra Herakti. Often pictured with a solar disk behind his head, the Ra Herakti version of Horus was the sun god responsible for the sun's path across the sky. Very interesting to me. Okay, so now we're on the pharaohs. The pharaohs in ancient Egypt were the political and religious leaders of the people and held the titles Lord of the Two Lands and High Priest of every temple. The word pharaoh is the Greek form of the Egyptian pero, which was the designation of the royal residence and means great house. The name of the residence became associated with the ruler and in time was used exclusively for the leader of the people. The early monarchs of Egypt were not known as pharaohs, but as kings. The honorific title of pharaoh for ruler did not appear until the period known as the New Kingdom, which is 1570 to 1069. Monarchs of the dynasties before the New Kingdom were addressed as Your Majesty by foreign dignitaries and members of the court, and as brother by foreign rulers. Both practices would continue after the king of Egypt came to be known as a pharaoh. In 3150, the first dynasty appeared in Egypt, with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt by the king Menes, also believed as Namir. Menes, or Namir, was depicted on inscriptions wearing the two crowns of Egypt, signifying unification, and his reign was thought to be in accordance with all the wills of God. But the office of the king itself was not associated with the divine until later. During the second dynasty, 2890 to 2670, King Reynab, also known as Nebra, linked his name with the divine and his reign with the will of gods. Following Reynab, the rulers of the later dynasties were equated with the gods with the duties and obligations due to those gods. Chief among these was the maintenance of Ma'at, harmony and balance, which had been decreed by the gods and needed to be observed in order for people to live the best possible life. And as ancient Egyptian rulers, Pharaoh, with both the heads of state and religious leaders of their people, the word Pharaoh means great house, a reference to the palace where the Pharaoh resides. While early Egyptian rulers were called kings, over time the name Pharaoh stuck. As the religious leader of the Egyptians, the Pharaoh was considered the divine intermediary between the gods and the Egyptians. Maintaining religious harmony and participating in ceremonies were part of the Pharaoh's role as head of the religion. As a statesman, the Pharaoh made laws, waged war, collected taxes, and also oversaw all the land in Egypt, which was owned by the Pharaoh. Many scholars believe the first Pharaoh, Narmer, also known as Menes, though there is some debate among experts, many believe he was the first ruler to unite Upper and Lower Egypt. This is why pharaohs hold the title Lord of the Two Lands. Pharaoh was typically male, although there were some noteworthy female leaders like Hatshepsut or Queen of Egypt. Of course, they're not going to have too many men, you know that, and women. After Cleopatra, also one sidebar on Cleopatra, the beetle is the order of, or the largest animal in the animal kingdom. So that was the kind of like a sign, the beetle for Cleopatra. I didn't know that till you just brought that up. And also Irene, the music, the Beatles, they spell it differently. Beetles is the bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's still, it's just a little bit of a, so that, yeah, they twist it a little bit so that, oh, we're not the same.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So, Cleopatra. So Hatshepsut in particular was a successful ruler, but many inscriptions and monuments about her were destroyed after her death, maybe to stop future women from becoming pharaohs. I thought that was funny. After their deaths, many pharaohs were entombed and surrounded by riches they were meant to use in the afterlife. Explorers and archaeologists often discovered these tombs and learned a great deal about ancient Egypt society from them. One very famous example was in 1922 when archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the tomb of the king, okay, let's wait for this, Tutankhamun, a pharaoh who died where he was only 19. These are the idol gods or goddesses that Egypt worshipped. In conclusion, the fulfillment of God's promise, which was in Exodus 12, verses 12 and 13, which I read in the beginning, but it also has verses, these two verses, 29 and 30. So here's what 29 and 30 say. And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to be the firstborn of the captive, who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of livestock. So Pharaoh rose in the night, he and his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So like in the book of Exodus, there will be judgments as well of the book of Revelation. Jesus was the firstborn of all creation. In the end, all people will be judged and have their names either put in the book of life or the book of death. Revelation 20 verse
It was saying the
sorry?
real book of death. The Egyptians had a book of the dead, but God has a book of death, book of life and book of death. So theirs is a copycat.
But here's a, I want to.
Okay, so this is gonna say Revelation 20, verse 12. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead was judged accordingly to what they had done as recorded in the books. After the events just foretold, the end will speedily come, and there is no mention of anything else before the appearing of Christ to judge the world. This will be the great judge, the great day. The judge, the Lord Jesus Christ, will then put on majesty and terror. The persons to be judged are the dead, the small, and the great, young and old, low and high, poor and rich. None are so mean, but they have some talents to account for, and none so great as to avoid having to account for them. Not only those alive at the coming of Christ, but all the dead. There is a book of remembrance, both for good and bad, and the book of the sinner's the sinner's conscience, though formerly secret, will then be opened. Every man will recollect all his past actions, though he had long forgotten many of them. Another book shall be opened, the book of the scriptures, the rule of life. It represents the Lord's knowledge of his people and his declaring his repentance, faith, and good works, showing the blessings of the new covenant. By their works, men shall be justified or condemned. He will try their principles by their practices. Those justified and acquitted by the gospel shall be justified and acquitted by the judge and shall enter into eternal life, having nothing more to fear from death or hell or wicked men, for these are all destroyed together. This is the second death. It is the final separation of sinners from God. Let it be our great concern to see whether our Bibles justify or condemn us now, for Christ will judge the secrets of all men according to the gospel. Who shall dwell with the devouring flames? So I took the end of that a little above me insofar as Revelations, because I don't know much about it except what they talk about. So to me, it's kind of scary, but I know that, that's kind of sort of in practice today of what we do with people and how we kind of crucify them and whatnot. So that's
So that, thank you, because
That
exactly
was all,
what I thought of. That was
Yes.
that was wonderful.
Absolutely
Yeah.
yes, awesome.
spectacular.
Yeah,
So
Out of the park.
Very good.
again, at the end, you mentioned the crucifixion, and what came up to me was darkness. We all recognize that the sun is at its highest, strongest point at midday, directly overhead, which is when Christ died and the sun was dark. The sun, so even as a symbol that everyone could see then, when Christ died on the cross, the sun went dark.
And I think there was a great earthquake too.
okay. I gotcha. I totally lost you guys. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. So she was just saying at the crucifixion, it got dark.
Showing God's superiority over everything once again,
Yep.
because the sun was at its highest, strongest point, would be highly visible. But in that moment, God again is showing his superiority by blackening the sun at the time of Christ dying on the cross.
And a couple of things that I wanted to point out was, so the biblical holiday that's spoken of in the Bible, so it's not a Jewish holiday, it's God's appointed time, is the Day of Atonement, which is when your name is written in either the book of life or the book of death. And for this year, it's coming on October 10th. October 12th, because I'm going to be in Brazil on the top of a mountain on that day. The other thing I wanted to point out, when you talked about balance, so earlier this week, I was led to the words 333 axios, and I looked it up, and I found an article about the ordination of a Catholic bishop and how they exclaim axios, axios, axios 3 times when they are ordained, at basically saying Alpha and Omega, Alpha and Omega. Alpha and Omega. And it means, when you said the word balance, I gotta find where did I write that? It means being in balance with God. So they're basically taking his authority on this earth, and I mean that, and it's coming up right. You said balance, and immediately it's like, I just got.
Gina says axios in Greek means worthy.
Yes, and so they're saying that they are worthy to take over the Alpha and the Omega's position here on earth.
What's coming
Oh,
is when
Uh,
they say they're taking it like witchcraft, like a curse. Axios,
I'm
axios.
going to say I'd like to clarify.
No, let me,
Yeah. We want to make a correction on something.
I thought
Okay.
the Pantheon was Parthenon. It's a different word.
It's a different word,
And
yeah.
Judith knows about it, she read about it, but Pantheon means in Greek many gods. So
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with,
Yeah.
it's Egyptian.
The Parthenon is the Parthenon that was a
Greece.
temple here in Greece. The word pantheon refers to the many gods of the Egyptian gods. As you mentioned, Terry, the god Ra was one of the highest in the pantheon of gods. And Horus, which April mentioned, they both had falcons as
Yeah.
symbols, and the falcon represents the power. And actually, Horus was the grandson of Geb, the god that I was talking, and the Osis was his son, and Horus was the son of him. He was the grand. But that's what the word pantheon means. It means many gods. So that
so-
means
so-
I just thought it
Mhm.
sounded like. I
Yeah, it
didn't
does
say
sound
why.
like it, but I
That's
mean,
what
but isn't it though? Isn't that a pagan temple?
no, and
Oh,
yes, in Rome, in Italy, there was a temple, but the word pantheon in the Egyptian time referred to the many gods of Egypt.
Yeah.
It
With
just-
Ra,
Every
huh?
time I said it, I heard.
it's spelled different. It's spelled Parthenon and Pantheon are two different words.
I understand that. It just reminded me of what I saw.
I think it's connected.
But it's
to the
got,
pagan.
it's got the gods. It's just.
Right. It's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
And April, you did a fabulous,
Yes.
absolutely.
really very,
Thank you so
very
much.
good.
I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, very good.
So I have a
Excellent.
question. I have a question, Irene, on the 333 you were just talking about with the balance. I don't know,
Yep.
my mind goes to numbers.
Yep.
333 is 9. So someone, I
Wow.
think I thought it was Teresa,
Terry.
T was talking about the number 9. Does
Yeah.
that have anything to do with each other, or am I just adding?
No, I think it does. Now that you just brought that up to our attention,
It's a culmination. So when you get to 9, then you must go to culminate into 10, which is totality,
and the final judgment.
final judgment.
So
Okay,
the false religions will be judged.
In April, you
Okay.
did a great job with Osiris.
oh,
Excellent.
no problem. Yours was really, I like yours better, but mine was really specific because it was the death of everything. So everything was kind of gruesome. And I want you to know, I've had dreams about this, just so you know about these people and what they look like and and then the whole birthing thing. Oh, it just craziness.
Well, and I am so impressed with the way you got the beginning and the end, because if you think about it, and you said birth, and you like the front and the back, because we're going from Exodus to Revelation. That's the beginning of the Bible and the end of the Bible. So I mean, it's all correlated.
Well, you helped me with that, Irene. I can't take all the credit. You gave me the guys to look up. So they kind of were in that order. So I didn't realize it until I was reading about it. And then I kind of you can move the paragraphs around a little bit so you could put them in order. So, but you helped me with that. So I can't take all the credit.
Oh,
But
Oh,
April,
these-
the 10th one was to me, all of them.
yeah, the 10th one was like
Like a
the culmination.
It
Like,
was a
okay,
right-
you're done.
Right. Well,
Judgment is
right.
not-
And as you guys were telling your pieces, I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know the beginning of them. I knew the ending of them. So it kind
Yeah.
of brought things through full circle for me as well.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Can I share something?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay, so what I want to share is it's kind of like a culmination of everything.
Yep.
And what happened then is happening now, which is pretty
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
So Ecclesiastics 1:9 says, what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun.
Wow.
Amen. Amen.
So we went through the first Exodus. What we're going to go through now is the second Exodus, how God's going to deliver us from all
Yes.
the lies that we have been under.
Yeah.
Yes.
Think about all these plagues, and all these plagues were tied to all these false gods. That's exactly what we're going through, right now. All the lies and deception. And we didn't know any better because that's how we were brought up.
Mhm.
Just like the gods of fertility, from the very beginning, these children were being introduced from inception, just like us. Everything we know today is a big fat lie. I just wanted to touch just on a couple of things. Isis, right?
Yeah.
Was the son of Osiris. Isis, we had an ISIS just a few years ago where they would chop the heads off. Right? There's
Oh.
so many things.
I
that-
didn't-
Absolutely, Reggie.
You know,
Absolutely.
like Hezbollah, ISIS. I didn't
Right.
even think of that. Oh
And
my
then-
God.
And then hybrids. They will look at all the gods, they're all hybrids. And what is today? Everything is about a hybrid, even in the cars, and
Yep.
they hybrid fruits, they hybrid animals. There's just
What'd you say?
so much
They're
is like
always
about-
mixing something together to make it a
Exactly.
one.
and
Yep.
what God
And
said,
the transgender.
exactly. And God said, do not mix.
That's
Do
right.
not mix. So these
Yep.
hybrids, whatever they are, it's wrong.
It
It's
is.
wrong. And then the symbols. There's so many symbols. With
Mhm.
Hollywood, what is the word? That says the symbols will be their downfall. The symbols of the crook, which is religious, the symbols of the eye, everything goes back to being a false, everything's like false. And what is worship? Worship is to honor, to show devotion, and our worship is to the Lord. But in our lifestyle today, what do they want us to honor? Honor, the sports, honor the celebrities, honor, and they give them the awards, all these things. But it's the same thing. These are
Yeah.
their gods, and these are our
Same
gods.
demons. Same demons are
Yes,
operating.
it's the
there.
same spirit.
Yeah.
And I think, April, you mentioned something. I don't know if it was Pharaoh or right before Pharaoh, you said the government would be the best possible life. You said that in your notes. Government, it said the best possible life.
I'll try
And
to
it was-
find it for you.
Right where you said Pharaoh, it was right. I don't know if it was right when you
Well,
were
Yeah,
talking-
Pharaoh
Yeah.
had a lot to,
Yeah.
Pharaoh had
Yeah.
to do with government. Bear with me. Are you talking about when they were talking about the taxes and everything?
Yeah, right before that, you said something, and I don't know if it was Pharaoh, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that is who our government is right now. They're trying to be our, everything, and the new
Yeah.
one is you will have nothing and be happy. And think about Pharaoh. He owned everything. Everything. He owned the land, he owned everything. They pay taxes. It's exactly what we're going through right now. And they don't want us to have anything, and they want us to be happy
And to be dependent on them.
and to be
Yeah, right.
dependent on it. But I don't know if anybody
That's one
caught that
Like,
tagline with the whole I forgot his name, but he says, you will have nothing and be happy. They want to just continually strip us of everything. And then there's another one. I don't know if you guys caught this, but the iPad. If you
iPad?
iPad, there was one of the gods. I think
Oh,
April, you mentioned iPad.
Yeah.
Okay, there's an interesting 3D animated short film called iPad Go. And it's really out there, but if you kind of look into it, it's a lot of symbolism of what's happening in our world. It has to do with the towers gone down, a lot of destruction and everything. But I find a lot of things that are with the gods are exactly what it is right now. And we will be going through our Exodus, and it's just so exciting to see how God is going to bring us through, and it's going to be so amazing. Just like before, he was trying to show the people through the pain and the suffering. He was just trying to get the people to see that he is the God of all God. He is the King of Kings. He is the one true God. And today, people are so busy investing their heart and time into all these other things that God is going to show himself strong, and he will show himself that he is the one true God.
amen. And so T has something to
Great,
add.
great summation, Reggie. Wonderful. Thank you.
There is a pattern and there is a circle. So we went 3, 6, 9, and we said that 9 is rebirth. And what was said, I'm sorry, I don't know everyone's names off the top of my head, but we are looking the 10th plague. It's the 10th plague where God said, I am taking back the firstborn.
Yes.
He is taking back 1/10, which is the tithe.
Yeah.
It's what he owns. He owns everything, but he is reclaiming that 1/10. So on the 10th plague, which is the culmination, he is
Taking back.
demanding the 10th that has not been given to him. He's
Well-
demanding our worship once again, which is a rebirth. And we now have the opportunity to begin a new cycle, which is what the 9 is giving birth to. And now people are going to be released. Something new is starting all again.
Well, and the 9 is either rebirth or judgment.
Right.
But what's coming to my mind is the firstborn is supposed to be set apart to God. And in my family, this is how it was for generations, was the firstborn male was to be a priest. And I've got histories of priests. My brother, firstborn male, is a priest. My dad was supposed to be one, but he said no, he wanted to have kids. But in his family, the firstborn was a priest. Before that was a priest. That's what they were told to do, to become priests. But it's in the wrong priesthood, unfortunately. But so that was
Terry?
the firstborn too. The firstborn is supposed to be set aside. So God's taken back the true firstborn. What's owed him?
Terry, you were talking about 9, and then the 10 isn't God owning the 10th or the 10, whatever 10 stands for, but he owns it,
Completion.
doesn't he? Don't we also tithe 10% and that he
Yes.
owns it?
Yep.
He owns all of it, but he demands 10% of it, a tithe.
Exactly,
from us.
exactly,
Exactly. it.
exactly.
And it's not just the money. The
No, no,
10%,
no.
like 10% of our time is supposed to be
That's right.
minimum. The
That's
first
right.
part of your day, the first 10th of your day,
right.
everything. It's just, it's not just money.
Correct,
That's right.
correct.
That's right.
Yep.
In agreement.
Anybody else have anything else to add?
I just share something that I do.
Donnie has something.
You know how we have all these pictures like Italy and they all make the saints?
Yeah.
There was something, April, in your presentation about, I kept, like the sun behind it. I always saw it as a halo, but it sounds like it's the sun.
Yeah,
Yep.
it could be.
Let me, yep. Oh goodness, you guys are making me go all over the place. Hold on.
But that's because you did so good. You had lots of good information.
You know what? You know what the problem is? I've been doing this now for a week and a half, so I know everything you're saying, but I can't find it.
But you know,
No
if you
worries.
think about it, I took the picture.
But yeah, Dawn, they did say, that's how he was depicted, but which is the guy?
Was it?
Right.
Oh, you know what? Let me look. Let me go back to yours. So here, April, let's see. Yours is, so we have Oret, we have Wadjet,
Yep.
Meshkanet,
That's,
Osiris,
well, I don't know why I'm thinking.
Horus. Those
Yeah,
are the
no,
only ones it has, unless it's not hers. Okay, so let me go back this way.
Gotta be somebody with
Right
there.
there. Well, that's one.
Whoops, a 10.
And then look at the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah,
then that's Amon-Re.
this is Terry's, right? Yeah.
Yep,
That's the
yep.
one that I saw, but I couldn't grab it as a picture for myself.
Oh, okay, yeah, and look, it looks like,
Looks
Yeah.
like the sun.
oh, there's,
Well, Ra was the
Yeah.
king.
and let's
Yeah.
see,
Go back.
There it is.
oh, Geb.
That's
Geb.
what I keep saying.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're, but I think you're talking about the saints in the
They
church.
make them look like
Yeah.
saints though.
They do it with Jesus
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
and Mary. They put it behind
On
them.
Mary.
And think about also the host.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
That they mix.
I think they put that in all the saints.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Hybrids and Regina, what you said was spot on.
It's, I mean, it
All
is, it's happening now, and he's showing us and opening our eyes, because I've read the Exodus before, and until now, I never noticed, like when, I forget, I think it was April when she read it, that it is, he specifically said that he's showing
Yeah.
these gods. I never
Yeah.
knew that that's what he was doing, and he says it, so I just
Yeah.
never paid
Oh,
attention.
the name Osiris. I see Isis, and then it said, and there was Isis. So
Yeah.
when you said Isis, that's exactly where my
I
mind was
didn't,
going.
when you said ISIS, I didn't think of ISIS, like the military
That's
group
why-
over in the Middle East. But what is also coming to my mind is there's also, what is the one that's over Hezbollah? No, the one that, where the word means, Hamas. It means violence for the sake of violence. That's what that means. And they are calling themselves Hamas.
The halo was a symbol of uncreated light. And it was supposed to symbolize God's grace shining through. It was uncreated light, but it was God's grace that was shining through.
Interesting.
That's what the halo symbolized.
Halo.
So ISIS was also associated with what Tawaret. So that was the hippopotamus I spoke about. And Ipet, Reret, and Hedjet, they were together with that ISIS. So that's where ISIS was in. So I don't know how the hippo, maybe they chopped the head off. I don't know. But that's basically where ISIS started for me.
Wow.
Was in Tawaret.
Okay.
Okay. So anybody else have anything else, or we'll close in prayer?
Closing.
Okay. Donnie, you want to lead?
Heavenly Father, gracious God, we come to you, Lord. We thank you for all this revelation. We thank you for opening our minds and our imaginations to you, Lord. Not to what we see on this earth, but to understand you, not us. We come to you, Lord, humbly. We empty ourselves out to you. Fill us with you, Lord.
Honey.
We love you so much. We praise you. And we thank you for this amazing group and the amazing technical in Jesus' holy name.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
So
Amen.
next week, we're going to be